Resourceful Designer, episode 244, Boosting Productivity by Culling Indulgences.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. His favorite television theme song is the one from Gilligan's Island. Mark Decout.
Just sit right back and you hear a tale of a faithful trip. And you either know that song or you don't. Either way, I love Gilligan's Island. I watched that so much as a young guy, and that song just stuck with me. Anyway, in this episode, I'm going to talk about getting the most out of your precious time by avoiding what I'm calling distracting indulgences. I'm also going to share a resource that will help flesh out your ideas, be it a website structure, social media campaign, or even the steps to achieve your business goals. Now, what have I been up to? Well, I've been hard at work this week. I've completed one logo design project, and the client loved it, by the way. I also finished several podcast artworks, and I'm waiting on a few more for the clients to get back to me. And I'm working on 2 separate web projects. I'm also in the process of staging out a new website redesign. It's actually one of my existing personal project websites. I'm going to be redesigning it. So I'm in the process of staging it out and figuring out exactly what I want to do with that site. I'm also in the initial stages of putting together a presentation for podcasters on key elements that their websites should include in order to help grow their show. So busy, but I'm so glad to be back at the grindstone. The holidays are great, don't get me wrong. I enjoy taking time off, but there's just something about hunkering down and getting to work that I just love. Now, speaking of things that I love, I want to talk to you about the Resourceful Designer Community. How's that for a transition? Now, as you may or may not be aware of, the community has been closed to new members since October. Well, I'm happy to announce that I will be reopening the community on March 1st for new people to join. However, anybody who signed up before February 1st to be notified of the relaunch will get an invitation to join early. Plus, they will also receive a special bonus that will not be available afterwards. So if you're interested at all in the Resourceful Designer Community, I encourage you to visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community and sign up before February 1st if you want to take part in the bonus and get early access to the reopening of the community. Now, there's been some stuff happening in the community since it shut down. I've added a section where we can share and discuss the books and the courses and the tutorials and all those similar things that we're enjoying. Share them with fellow community members, talk about them, and just encourage people to grow and improve themselves. I'm also in the process of adding what I haven't figured out a name for it yet, but it's a presentation section of the community where myself and community members can present things to fellow members. So if somebody in the community has an expertise in something and they'd like to share, they can create a presentation. It would be presented live with a Q&A and the whole bit, but it'll also be recorded. So if anybody can't attend the presentation, they can watch it afterwards, but it's only going to be available to community members. So there's a lot happening. The people in the community are really getting to know each other. We're really forming a tight bond. It's a good accountability group. It's a good sounding board. Sometimes it's just a great place to vent when you're frustrated, as well as gloat in a good way whenever you get those big wins, because you know that the people you're sharing with have your back and are rooting for you. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, and you're willing to put in the effort, because just like anything, any community or anything that you join, you get out what you put in. And those who are benefiting the most from the community, those that say it's one of their more important investments for their business, are those that are regularly participating within the community. They get the most out of it. So if that sounds like something you want to try, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community and sign up before February 1st to get early readmission as well as a special bonus. And now this week's resource of the week. This week's resource is a website called Dynalist.io. That's Dynalist.io. Now, Dynalist is a great tool for organizing and mind mapping. And what's great about it is you can access it from any platform. So no matter where you are, if you have an idea or something, you can access it from whatever device you're near and make changes, create new lists, and the whole bit. Think of it as an organization list or a bullet list on steroids, but it's so much more than that. For example, if you're laying out the structure for a new website project, I mentioned how I'm doing a redesign for one of my projects. Well, I'm using Dynalist to lay out the structure. So I'm creating a list with all my main menu items and then all the subpages, as well as all the different categories that I'm going to be dividing pages into, and also tags and so forth and so forth. So I'm building out the entire structure of the website. And that'll make it so much easier when it comes time to build, because I'll know exactly every page I need and how all the pages are connected. And you do this all in the form of lists. Now, I know just talking about it doesn't do it justice. It sounds pretty basic. It's one of those things that you really have to try in order to truly appreciate what it can do. But if you're working on a social media campaign for yourself or for your clients, it's a great way to keep track of everything. Dynalist will help you so that you make sure that nothing gets overlooked. And there's so many great features, and I can't go into all of them. One of the features that I love is how easy it is to move things around. If you're creating just a normal list in some note program or whatever, and you wanted to move something from one area to the other, you'd have to copy it from the one place, find the other place where it needs to go, and then paste it in. Well, that sounds simple enough. But with Dynalist, you just click on the item, you tell it to move, and you simply pick the area where it's going to move, and it does it for you. No need to search for the stuff. And anyways, again, it sounds a little strange, but you really have to see it to appreciate it. Now, Dynalist does have I believe it's $7.99 per month plan, but I don't even use that. I use the free plan and I love it. The free plan has unlimited lists, there's no limit to what you can do, how long your lists can be in that. It does absolutely everything I need. The paid plan does have some extra features, but so far looking at them, there's none of the features that I really need. So if you're looking for a great free resource to help you organize, create mind maps and the whole bit, why not check out dynalist.io. And now, boosting productivity by culling indulgences. People often ask me how I can handle so many things at the same time. So many spinning plates, if you will. All while working only 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you ask most designers, they'll tell you that they spend many late nights or weekends that they work in order to get their jobs done. And yet I rarely work late, and I hardly ever work on weekends. So how do I do it? How do I get so much done without putting the extra time in? I mean, I manage this podcast, plus I have another podcast about a television show that I do. I run 2 separate design businesses. There's the Resourceful Designer Community, as well as my personal quote-unquote work-related projects that I have on the go. All of this within a 40-hour work week. And people often want to know how I do it. How do I manage it? Well, if I'm going to be truly honest with you, I don't always. In fact, I'm actually recording this podcast Saturday because I ran out of time during this week, so I am taking a little bit of time on the weekend. But that is a rarity for me. Normally, I get all my work done between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. So how do I do it? Well, I learned many years ago that my time is valuable. I only have so much of it, and I have to figure out the best use for that time for me. So I constantly ask myself, how can I get the best ROI for my time? And the biggest help was learning to cull my indulgences. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, before I get to that, let me tell you a story. As you may or may not know, my wife and I have 2 kids, both of which are now in their 20s, and they no longer live at home with us. So since the kids moved out, Kim and I have had to adjust to the lives of being empty nesters. One of those adjustments is finding television shows that we can watch together. Kim loves comedies and dramas and romantic shows, whereas I prefer science fiction, fantasy, and the action-adventure type programs. Now, it wasn't a problem when our daughter was still at home. She was the last one to leave. She and Kim enjoyed the same type of shows, so they would often put on their show on the television, and I would slip down to the basement and watch one of my shows downstairs. But with the kids gone, Kim and I try to find shows to watch together. Now, a couple of months ago, we started watching a show on Netflix called The Order. It's a young adult-oriented semi-romantic drama that includes witches, warlocks, and werewolves, so it kind of checked off both of our interests. And over the course of a couple of weeks, with an episode here and an episode there, we watched it until we finished season 1. It wasn't the best show we'd ever seen, but it was entertaining and we found it enjoyable. Now, a few weeks after that, season 2 of The Order came out. So one night we decided to start it. But that first episode was kind of meh. There was nothing great about it. So it actually took a few days before we decided to watch another episode. And that one didn't turn out to be much better. And when it came to watching episode 3 and eventually episode 4, we were actually questioning if perhaps there was something else we wanted to watch instead of that. It was always a toss-up, and sometimes other things would win over before this. But after watching the 4th episode, we both decided that this season just wasn't worth finishing, and we gave up on it. Our time was too valuable to waste on a program that we were no longer enjoying. Now, this may not be the best example, since, of course, the time we saved by not watching The Order, we ended up still spending it on the couch watching something else. But the point I'm trying to convey is, your time has value, and it shouldn't be wasted on things that don't contribute to that value. In the case of this television show, that value was being entertained. And it got to the point where we were no longer entertained by it, so there was no reason to keep watching it. Now let's go back to how I manage my days in order to get everything done. As I said earlier, I learned a while back that to be the most productive person I could be, I needed to cull my indulgences. So what does that mean? It means that whenever something catches my eye, call it shiny object syndrome if you will, whenever I come across something that might be a distraction, I ask myself this question: would I be any worse off if I don't indulge in this? So would I be any worse off if I don't listen to this podcast episode? Would I be any worse off if I don't watch this YouTube video? Would I be any worse off if I don't read this article? Now, don't ask yourself if you would be better off if you do these things, because the answer will often be a misleading yes. And I say misleading because knowledge in general does make you better, regardless of what that knowledge is. If you listen to the podcast or the YouTube video or read the article, you're going to learn something, which just the fact that you're learning something makes you better, even if it's just in some minute way. But asking if you would be worse off by not indulging in whatever it is, you're given a completely different perspective to judge it by. For example, if I come across an article reviewing new features in Adobe Illustrator, I would ask myself, would I be any worse off if I don't read this article? And the answer is yes, I would, because I use Illustrator on a regular basis. And if there are new features that are now available that can make what I do easier and speed up my workflow, then not learning them would make me worse off. So in that case, I would take the time to read that article. However, if I come across an article titled Top 10 Design Trends to Avoid in 2001, the answer, at least as far as I'm concerned, would be no. Now, I might gain some knowledge and some benefit from reading the article, but I'm not actually going to be any worse off if I don't read the article. I tend to do my own thing anyways. I don't follow trends. So why waste valuable time reading that article, no matter how curious I am? My time could be better spent doing other things. Now, in some cases, putting off instead of dismissing altogether is an option. If I come across an article that says the 10 most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, this one hits me in the geeky core that I am. I mean, I'm a huge Marvel fan, and I want to know if this list coincides with the one that I have in my head. But would I be any worse off if I did take the time to read the article and find out? The answer is actually yes, I would be worse off if I read the article. Not because of the knowledge I would gain, but because reading the article would take up valuable time when I should be working. So the smart thing to do is not indulge. However, the geek in me really wants to know. I mean, who do they have at number 1? Is it the Hulk? Is it Thor? Is it Captain Marvel? Someone I'm not thinking of? I think it's Captain Marvel. Must be Captain Marvel. Anyways, in this case, instead of dismissing the article altogether, I put it aside to look at when I'm not working. You see, outside of the hours of 9 to 5, when I'm working, outside of those times, the value that I associate with my time diminishes drastically. When I'm not in my office, I allow myself to indulge in these sort of things. I mean, you have to enjoy life, right? But during working hours, for me, between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., I try to use my time in the most productive way. Now, in some cases, I encounter an indulgence that I would be worse off if I didn't read it or watch it. However, I wouldn't be worse off right now. For example, I love the extension Divi Blog Extra. It's a module for Divi created by the company Divi Extended. But I only use Divi Blog Extra on a couple of websites. In most cases, the default blog module that comes with Divi is good enough for the sites that I build. So let's say an update for Divi Blog Extra came out and they have a release article with the new features. Not only would I benefit from knowing about them, but I might also be worse off by not knowing about them. So you would think, well, that would give me a good reason to read the article. However, as I said, I only use Divi Blog Extra on a couple of websites, and those websites are working fine as is. So whatever new features the module has with it now is of no consequence to me in regard to those sites. And if I'm not currently working on any new website that requires that module, there's no reason for me to learn those new features right now. Now, this goes back to one of my very first podcast episodes titled Just-in-Time Learning. In fact, that was episode number 8. If you want to go back to listen to it, resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 8. Now, just-in-time learning is a mindset that makes you more productive. The theory behind just-in-time learning is there's no sense learning something now if you're not going to use that knowledge now. Because chances are, by the time you do actually have to use it, you've forgotten some of it, if not all of it, and you're going to have to refresh yourself anyways, which means you're actually doubling the time you're spending learning it. So instead, what you do is you take note of it, and then you put it aside and go back to it when you do need to learn it. That's just-in-time learning. And it became a huge time saver for me when I first discovered this. I have tons of tutorials and articles that I put aside. Now, I use Evernote, by the way, in case you're interested, to keep track of all these things. I have them all in a folder and I have them all tagged with different tags depending on what they're for. And they're all there, easily searchable for the day that I might need them. They're all cases of things that I may need to know, but I'm not worse off by not knowing them right now. So in the case of Divi Blog Extra, until I need to use it on another website, there's no use me learning about these new features. My time can be used for better things right now. Earlier, I mentioned coming across an article listing new features in Adobe Illustrator and how, because of my use of Illustrator, I would be worse off if I didn't read that article. However, I can apply the same principle within that article. As I skim it, I ask myself, would I be worse off if I didn't know about this one feature? So if the article is listing new features that have to do with, let's say, for example, the Pathfinder tool or the appearance panel, then yes, I would be worse off because I use those things on a regular basis. And if they have new features that can help me, then great, I need to know them. But if I come across a part of the article that talks on how Adobe Illustrator has improved its embedding cloud documents from Photoshop, that's a feature that I never use. So I would not be any worse off if I don't read about it. I can skip over that. And it makes reading things so much faster if you ignore the stuff you don't need to know, or at least don't need to know right now. Am I getting my point across? You would be amazed at how much time you spend throughout your day or your week indulging in things that are not pertinent to your business, or at least not pertinent right now, when your time could be spent on things that are pertinent to your business. So ask yourself, would I be any worse off if I don't indulge in this? And then see how much time you can get back. And use it on everything. Articles, tutorials, YouTube videos, even podcasts. I may be shooting myself in the foot by saying this, but if I put out a podcast episode and you would be no worse off by not listening to it, then don't listen to it. If it doesn't apply to you, Or if it has no use to you, then don't bother. I'm subscribed to over 60 podcasts. Do you think I listen to each and every episode they put out? Of course not. I don't have that much time. I judge each episode and decide if it's something that I need to listen to. Would I be worse off if I didn't? And then I decide if I'm keeping it or if I'm deleting it. Now, I'm hoping you don't do that with Resourceful Designer, that you find every episode worth listening to. But I'm also hoping that I'm not causing you to waste time you could be spending growing your business on something that's not important to you. Now, of course, I'm not saying this idea is foolproof. No plan for productivity or anything like that is the end-all of productivity hacks. I still get sucked down the rabbit hole every now and again. That's just life. Sometimes curiosity or that shiny object syndrome just gets the better of us. But the more disciplined you are, and the more time you can free up from these indulgences, or at least put them off until later, the more time you'll have to invest in running and growing your design business. And that's how I can do 2 podcasts, run 2 separate design business, partake in Resourceful Designer Community, as well as manage my personal work-related projects and websites, and so much more, all while sticking to a 9-to-5 schedule. And you could make your time more productive as well. Just ask yourself, would I be any worse off if I don't indulge in this? Now, I would love to know what you thought of this topic. Leave me a comment at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 244. Now, before I go, I want to remind you about the Resourceful Designer Community. It will be opening again on March 1st, but if you sign up to my waitlist before February 1st, you'll get early access plus a bonus. So head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/community and sign up now. And if you want to test out mind mapping or dynamic list making to help you organize yourself, your projects, your business, and the whole bit, check out dynalist.io. That's DYNALIST.io. And register for their free plan. It's all you'll need to get started. So thank you very much for listening. If you're still around at the end, I do appreciate you. And could you do me a favor? If you know another designer that you think can benefit from listening to Resourceful Designer, please tell them about the show. Don't keep it all to yourself. Anyways, as I said, I'm recording this on Saturday, so I want to get it edited, get it all ready to publish on Monday, and get back to maybe watching something with my wife. Until next time, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your design business, and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.